look at it. It is now bubbly. You can see all of the active bubbles on top. You can see all of the bubbles in the jar. This is a very happy, fat, because it has been eating a lot. Very active, very happy starter. So, oh, did you guys see that bubble? You probably didn't because it was not on a camera, but it is just going bloop, bloop, bloop. Oh, did you see that? No, you didn't because it wasn't in the shot. Whatever. Anyway, it's very happy. So we are going to make the dough for our bread. So if you do not have a scale, I recommend you get one. It is very difficult to make, well, it's very difficult to make any sort of bread or anything if you do not have a scale, especially sourdough. So I recommend you get one. I think I got this at Walmart for like $8. I don't know, it was cheap. You wanna make sure that you are in grams. You wanna make sure that you are in grams. And then I recommend that you get one of these bins. I got this one at the US food store, which we happen to have one in our location. They also have them in square. However, I recommend the round ones because as you're doing your stretch and folds or your, I call them mashups because that's basically what you're doing is you're mashing up the dough. As you're doing your stretch and folds, it's really difficult to get into the corners of the square ones. And so that's why I recommend you do the round ones. So let's just make sure that you can see this. As you can see, we're not at 0. So we want to just go ahead and hit the tear button. We're going to be doing that a lot. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get our starter, our lovely, beautiful, bubbly, active starter. And we're going to dump it in and we want 300 grams. So I just do a little shaky, shaky. And we're just going to measure out 300 grams of starter. And I know just from experience that that is about as much starter as I get from one feeding in my jar. So it's gonna take about, see, I don't have a ton left in my jar. I've got a little bit, but not a lot. So I know that around 300 grams is about a feeding's worth in my jar. So this, well, you know what, whatever, we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so I've got 304, doesn't matter, in the range of 300 grams of my active starter. And then we are going to add in 600 grams of water. So we're gonna go ahead and tear this out so it gets back to 0. And I usually just use tepid, warm water. Doesn't have to be hot, doesn't have to be cold, just kind of, you know, tepid, warm-ish water. We're gonna measure out around 600 grams. 635, fine, whatever, it's fine. Now I'm going to take, this is a Dutch mixing wand. I don't even know really what they call this. So I'm gonna take this. This is really handy. You don't have to use this. You can use whatever mixing implement you want. You could actually even do this in your mixer if you want to, although you just have to be super careful when you use your mixer because you do not want to overmix this. Sourdough is very forgiving. It is not a bougie dough. It is not one of those doughs that's like, why are you like not using the organic sourced flour from the wheat fields of the Andes Mountains that were harvested by Swiss virgins? Like, sourdough don't care. Sourdough is super forgiving, super resilient. It don't care. So it is hearty. It's a very hearty bread, but still you want to be careful about over mixing it. And so that's why I do it. That's why I do it with my little mixing wand here. Now you can tell that your sourdough starter is active and lovely if it floats. If you noticed while I was talking about Swiss virgins, my starter was floating on top of the water, and that means that it is airy and happy and good to go. So I'm just gonna take a half a minute here, and I'm just gonna mix up my water and my starter till it looks milky. Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna go back. To our scale. We're going to tear that out. Please tear. Hello. There we go. We're going to tear it out, and we're going to add 900 grams-ish of flour. This is just a unbleached all-purpose white flour. That's all this is. Nothing fancy, as I was saying. And I'm just going to dump it in. So 900-ish grams. Just a little, since we had just a little bit over 600 grams. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, 910, that's great. Like I said, it's an ish thing. Okay, so I'm gonna take this back off the scale. Squeaky, squeaky. I'm gonna take my little mixer here, and I'm just gonna mix this in. It's gonna take a little bit of elbow grease, it's fine. I don't have a lot of, I'm certainly not a muscly person. I'm very girly in my arm muscles, but it's okay. I can still do this. So you're going to notice that your dough is very shaggy. It is very not smooth. And you know what? That's exactly what you want. That is exactly what you want. You just want to make sure that there are no super wet places and there are no super dry places in your dough. That's all you're looking for. You just want it to be, you know, lightly mixed, still shaggy. It shouldn't be smooth at this point. You're just looking for it to come together at this point. And I always try to check the bottom. That's where the water and the flour like to congregate. Everything looks pretty good. Okay, so this looks good. And I mean, you can see it is, it is not a super mixed, super smooth, super really anything at this point. It looks very, very unpretty. It's not going to look like a whole lot of anything special. And that's what we want, actually. This is just baby step one in our sourdough journey. So just kind of get off the rest of this. It is going to be very sticky, so just expect that. Now the last thing we want to do is we're going to get our scale back here. We're going to tear this out. Is we're going to add our salt. Now, this is a process called autolyse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 23 grams of salt right on top. I am not going to mix it in. I'm not going to use my little Dutch mixer thingy-madingy wand. I am just going to put 23 grams of salt right on top, and I'm just going to let it hang out. And it's just gonna sit there. And this process is called autolyzing. And basically what you're doing is you're letting this dough have a moment. You're letting the dough have a walkabout. You're kind of letting it have a gathering moment, a moment of reflection, of kind of it's just coming together. It's new. It's just been born, and it just kind of needs a moment of orientation, of like, who am I? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? What's my goal? And so it needs a moment. And so you put the salt on top and you just leave it. You just leave it alone and you let it have its moment. So this is what it looks like. I am gonna put a lid on top of this. I'm not gonna seal it. I'm just gonna gently lay the lid on top, and I'm gonna put it on my counter, and I'm gonna set a timer for 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna come back and I will see you then. All right, my sourdough is resting on my counter, and now we have this left over. This is what we have just sitting in my jar. I told you that 300 grams is usually about the amount that will be in my jar, but I do usually have just a little bit left over. Now this came out of my fridge. This is my original sourdough starter. This is Loaf Vader, which is the name of my starter. We're pretty huge Star Wars fans around here. Anyway, no, this is not a 600-year-old San Francisco sourdough starter that my pioneer ancestors took across the plains in their pioneer handcarts. I'm not that bougie. But Loaf Vader just lives in my fridge. I feed it every once in a while. I actually fed him last night just a little bit of flour and water because he was starting to get a little hungry and sad. But this is called discard. This just means that I had leftover active starter that I didn't use in my dough recipe. And so I can either throw it away, but why would I do that? I can actually use discard in various recipes. Google it, you'll find a whole bunch of recipes. In fact, I'm going to link one in the description box to some sourdough discard brown butter chocolate chip cookie bars that are out of this world. Oh my gosh, they are so good. So I will link that recipe in the description. It is thebomb.com. But basically all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this discard that I have left over and I'm just gonna add it to Loaf Vader. And it's okay that it's still active. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's not gonna do anything to Loaf Vader. In fact, it's probably gonna make Loaf Vader happy. And he is just gonna get this added to him. And then I can take this. I can take a little bit of Loaf Vader. Oh, sorry, I knocked you with my elbow. I can take a little bit of Loaf Vader later. See, it just sits right there on top. Doesn't matter. Like I said, it's not rocket science. This is just sourdough. And I'm gonna put the lid back on here. And this is gonna go back in my fridge. And it's just gonna sit there and be happy and be lovely. And anything that you put in the fridge basically is slowed like a snail. So while there may be active starter in here, it's not really going to do anything. It's not going to grow. It's not going to bubble. It's basically going to sit there and be dormant because it's going to be so cold that it's not going to do anything. So anything in the fridge slows way down. And that's going to be an important thing to remember. If you want something to speed up, if you want your sourdough starter after you feed it to rise quickly, if you want the feeding to happen more quickly so that you get a quicker rise in your starter, put it someplace really warm because warmth activates things quicker. If you want a bread loaf to rise quicker, put it in a warm oven or on a little heating pad or something. But warmth makes things go quicker and cold makes things go really slow. So this is going to go back in the fridge and it'll basically just sit there and be dormant. It's not going to kill it or anything. It's not, you know, it's not going to cryo freeze it. Oh gosh, did you see what I did there? Oh boy. Anyway, it's just kind of going to go a little bit dormant. It's just going to slow it way down. So loaf fader is going to go back in the fridge and I will see you in just a little bit and we will continue on with our dough. All right, we are back. It has been 30 minutes. Here is our dough. So you can see on the top the salt. It's just been hanging out there. And all we're gonna do, I wear a glove because I have nails and dough underneath the nails is gross. So I wear a glove. All we're gonna do is we're gonna mash the salt right into the dough. That's it. That's all we're gonna do. And now we're gonna do our first stretch and fold, is what they're called officially. And you're just going to scoop, pull, and press. And then scoop, pull, and press. And you're just gonna go all the way around. Scoop. And I try and get down to the bottom. Obviously the dough is very shaggy right now. And press. I'm just gonna turn, and you can see it already become smoother as we're doing this. Okay, and that's it. And we are gonna do one stretch and fold every 30 minutes until we've done 4 stretch and folds. Now, as I've said before, sourdough is not a picky dough. It doesn't care. It's like the dough that it's standing on the corner with a cigarette hanging out of its mouth being like, whatevs. So if you don't have time to do 4 stretch and folds because your schedule is like, nope, I only have time to do 1 stretch and fold, or I only have time to do 2 stretch and folds, or whatever, it's fine. Your bread is still gonna come out amazing and delicious, and it's fine. Sourdough doesn't really care. But I have always just done 4 stretch and folds, 1 every 30 minutes until I get to 4, and so that is what I am going to do. And I think it makes, I think it makes my dough look smooth and pretty. And so if you want smooth and pretty dough, then that's what I do. I do 4 stretch and folds, but obviously your bread doesn't care how pretty it is, because again, your dough is standing on the corner smoking a cigarette. So anyway, I will be back in another 30 minutes. You can see the dough is starting to look smooth. It's got some bubbles in it. it's starting to get really stretchy. Okay, this is our last stretch and fold. Look at our dough, it's nice and smooth. It's actually risen quite a bit, which is good. See that the gluten has developed quite a bit. That's nice. Feels lovely. And this is what I mean when I talk about I like my dough pretty. Nice and smooth. Okay, so this is going to get the lid, and I'm actually going to snap it on tight, and this is going to go in the fridge to do its bulk rise, and it's going to go overnight. Because remember, when things go in the fridge, they go nice and slow because the cold makes things slow down. And so it's gonna go overnight into the fridge, and when I come back tomorrow morning, it will have risen. But if you don't want it to go in the fridge, if you're just gonna put it on your counter to do its bulk rise, it's gonna take it about 6 to 8 hours. And so make sure you schedule your bulk rise accordingly. But I'm gonna pop this in the fridge and we will be back tomorrow.